Hello guys, welcome to the next session of developing a console-based banking application using Java programming language. In the last session, we discussed on how we can add a check bank balance functionality for the admin. So with the help of this functionality, admin can check any customer's account balance. Now in this session, we are going to add one more functionality for the customers, which is nothing but uh, raising a checkbook request functionality. So let's see how we can do this. So in order to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going inside the init customer method, and over here what we are going to do is we are just going to add one more option, that is nothing but a raise checkbook request. So whenever user will select the fifth option, it is nothing but a raise checkbook request. So let checkbook request, something like this. Now in order to raise a checkbook request, we need to add one case also. So let me just add one case, and let me just add one break also. Now over here we have to write one method so that we can raise some checkbook request. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use private. As of now, I'm just going to keep it as a void, and maybe in a moment we will just change if required. And let me just give the method name as raise checkbook request. Now this method should take one parameter, which is nothing but a user ID or customer ID, which is quite obvious, right? So let me just add one parameter, string user ID, something like this. Now we need a similar method inside our user service. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go inside the user service, and over here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use public, then raise checkbook request, and again this method will also take one parameter. Over here I just missed return type, so let me just give it as a void, and then parameter will be like string user ID again, something like this. Now we require the similar method inside our user repository. So let me just copy this method itself, and let me just go inside the user repository, and let me just paste it over here, something like this. We can paste it anywhere, so let me paste it at the top itself. Now this method will be responsible for actually inserting the data into the collections. So over here again we need one collection in which we can just store our checkbook request, and we can just maintain that checkbook request data. So again, to like keep the details, we have multiple collections. We have the list, then we have set, and we have map also. And the question is, which is the which collection we can use over here. So I think we can go with the map itself. The reason why I'm choosing map over here is map basically stores values inside like a key and value pair with the help of key and value pair. So over here what we can just do is we can just keep our key as our user ID and value as a boolean value like true and false. So whenever user will raise a checkbook request, then what we will do, we will just add one data entry inside our map, and the key we will keep it as a user ID, and boolean value initially we will keep it as a false. And when admin will like approve the checkbook request, then we will that like uh, we will update that value to the true. So in that way it will help us to maintain data like in a very effective manner. So that is the reason I'm just going to use map over here. So what we can just do, we can just declare one map user ID, like key will be this of type string because user ID is of type string, and then value will be the value will be of type boolean. And let me just give the name as checkbook request, something like this, is equals to new. Now over here we have two options like hash map and link the hash map. So uh, if you if the sequence matters, like if insertion order matters, then we can go with the linked hash map, or else we can go with the hash map itself. So I don't think we need any sequence over here, or we have any like dependency on our sequence. So that is the reason I'm just going to use hash map over here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use just like checkbook request dot put, and over here I'm just going to add a user ID comma, and I'm just going to hard code a value which is nothing but a false. So it is basically means that like we have just raised a request and it is pending for a approval. So as of now the value is false because it is pending for approval, and once admin approves it we will make it as a true. So that is the intention behind it. So our raise checkbook request method is ready inside the user repository. What we can just do, we can just go inside our service and we can just make it as a user repository dot raise checkbook request, and we can just pass the user ID. And in similar way we can just go inside our main class and we can just use user service dot raise a checkbook request, and we can just pass our user ID something like this. Now what we have to do is we have to just go inside the case 5 and then we have to call the raise checkbook request method that we have just created. And now we need a user ID. So from where we will get it? So over here inside the init customer we are getting the entire user as a parameter. So what we can just do, we can just use user dot get username something like this. And now let me just save all the changes and let me just run the application. Let's see what happens. As of now we haven't printed any messages and anything, so that is the reason we might not get any output as such, but let me just make sure that we are not getting any exceptions. So yes, we are not getting any exceptions, and it is we can assume that as of now like our request is raised, right? Now over here we have couple of conditions. So what if, like if I as of now I just raised a request, right? So if I just try to raise a request again, so that in that case it should not allow me to raise a request, right? Instead it should show me some messages like you have already raised a request and it is waiting for some admin's approval or something like this. So let's see how we can handle those conditions also. So what we can just do is um, we can just write one more method which will return us all the checkbook request. And in order to do this, what we can just do, we can just use private void, and over here let me just give the name like get all checkbook request something like this. And as of now I have kept it as a void, but in a moment we are going to change this. So we need similar method inside the user service. So let me just add that similar method, and we need similar method inside the user repository also. So let me just add that method. Now this method will return directly our map, which is nothing but a checkbook request map. And over here we are getting the issue, this is due to the void, so we have to change it to the map of string and boolean. Now if I just go to the user service, what I have to do is I have to just return user repository dot get all. Okay, so inside the user repository let me just make this method as a public, and then what we can just do, we can just call our get all checkbook request method something like this. And again we are getting the same issue, we have to just change the return type to the map of string and boolean. Now if I just come to the main class, over here what we have to do, we have to just use return user service dot, again let me just change the access modifier, get all checkbook request something like this, and again we have to just change it to the map of string and boolean. Now in this case what we have to do, we have to just go to the case 5, and then over here what we have to do is we have to just call our get all checkbook request method, and let me just store it inside the map of string and boolean something like this. Now what we have to do is we have to check whether like this particular user ID that we are going to raise a request for is present inside this map or not. So how we can do is we can just check if map dot contains key, and what we can just do, we can just create one more variable which is nothing but a string user ID is equals to, and we can just use user dot get username, something like this. And what we can just check, we can just check like if map dot contains key and map dot get username. So if our map contains our user ID and if the value is true, like if the key associated with that user ID is true, which means that we can just print one message: you have already raised a request and it is already approved, something like this. There is one more condition, like else if map dot contains key user ID and map dot get user ID. So over here also we can just pass user ID instead of user dot get username, something similar over here also. But this time what we have to do, we have to place a not over here. Like if our map contains our user ID but associated value is false, then this particular means that this particular condition means that you have already raised a request and it is pending for approval. It is pending for approval, something like this. And if none of the above condition executes, then basically means that we have to raise a new checkbook request. So instead of this, what we can just do, we can directly pass our user ID, something like this. And now let me just do one thing, let me just restart the application. Let's see what happens, whether we are getting the expected output or not, or should we write any other conditions. So let me just pass user 2 and then let me just raise a checkbook request. So yes, our checkbook request is raised now. We haven't shown any message, but we can just show in a moment. And let me just try to use fifth option again. Now if you just see what it is saying, like you have already raised a request and it is pending for approval. That means it is not allowing me to like raise request multiple times, because we have already raised a request, which basically means that like we have to wait till admin approves our request, right? So we are getting the expected output. One thing that we can just do is we can just put one message over here: request raised successfully, something like this. And now we can just save this and we can just like you can just like restart the application and you can just check whether it is showing this particular message or not. So this is how we can add a logic in order to raise a checkbook request for the customers. So if you still have any questions, let me know into a comment section and I will try my best to help out in that case. In the next session, we will see like how we can add a logic for the admin so that admin can approve these checkbook requests. So I hope you enjoyed this session. I'll see you in the next session.